Aléria is a commune in the Haute-Corse department of France on the island of Corsica, former bishopric and present Latin Catholic titular see. It includes the easternmost point in metropolitan France. Administration. Aléria shares the canton of Moiteverde with 13 other communes: Moita, Ampriani, Campi, Canal di Verde, Pietra, Linguisetta, Matra, Pianello, Pietra di Verde, Tolone, Tox, Zelana and Zuana. Geography. Aléria is 70 kilometers to the south of Bastia on Route N198, in the center of the Plain Oriental, also called the Plain d'Aléria, the east-central coastal plain of the island facing Italy. It includes a number of villages and monuments. Most of the rest of the island is precipitously mountainous. The eastern coastline is punctuated by a number of lakes connecting to the Tyrrhenian Sea, the remnant of an ancient system of lagoons behind barrier beaches. The Corsicans refer to them under the name of Etang, pool, although most are larger by far than an English pool. Marshland is also extensive on the coast, requiring that cities be built inland from it. Malaria has historically been a problem near the marshlands and swamps of eastern Corsica. The fine barrier beaches are a recreational attraction. The Tavignano River enters the commune to the northwest and exits into the Tyrrhenian Sea. Its lands include a delta, marshes to the south and the unconnected Etang de Diane to the north. To the west, the Etang de Terros is a lake and reservoir used to irrigate the plain. Corsica had an indigenous population in the Neolithic and the Bronze Age, but the east coast was subject to colonization by Mediterranean maritime powers: Greeks, Etruscans, Carthaginians, Romans. They typically built on an etang, which they used as a harbor. Aléria was placed between the southern end of the 3.5-kilometre long Tang de Diane and the Tavignano River, slightly inland, but controlling the entire district including the mouth of the river. The site is partly occupied today by the village of Cataraggio at the crossroads of national routes N200 and N198. N200 follows the Valle de Tavignano into the interior mountains of Corte. When the Etruscans took the district, after its abandonment by the Greeks, they settled further south along N198 in the vicinity of the village of Aléria, today primarily an archaeological site across the river from Cataraggio, where visitors and academics are courted. Still south of there was the Etruscan necropolis, in today's Casabianda. Aléria takes its name from the Roman town placed there after the defeat of the Etruscans. The entire district, however, is wider still, following the Corsican custom of including some mountains and some beaches in every district. It incorporates the agricultural lands of Tepros, the entire Etang de Diane and the Plage de Padulone 3 kilometers east of Cataraggio, a former barrier beach. Since 1975 a series of laws have created the Casabianda Aléria Nature Preserve. 1,748 hectares between the mouth of the Tavignano and the Etang de Binu, which is 5 kilometers to the south. The reserve to the south was initiated from the grounds of the former penitentiary of Casabianda in 1951. It was instituted in 1880 in a then pestilential area which it was hoped the prisoners could farm. It contained 1,800 hectares and 214 plots. Due to a high death rate from malaria, the agricultural experiment failed. Ancient history. Pre-Roman. According to Herodotus, 20 years before the abandonment of Phocaea in Ionia, that is, in 566 BC, Phocaeans colonizing the western Mediterranean founded a city, Aléria, on the island of Cyanus. Diodorus Siculus says that the city was named Calaris, possibly a corruption of Alaliae. The historical circumstances of Calaris leave no doubt that it was Aléria. Diodorus says that Aléria had a beautiful large harbour, called Syracusium, that Calaris and another city, Nicaea, were on it, and that Nicaea had been built by the Etruscans. Syracusum can only be the Etangdidian, a lake exiting to the Tyrrhenian Sea. As Aléria and Nicaea were trade rivals, it seems unlikely that the Etruscans would have allowed the Phaeacians, who were ancient Greeks, access to Etangdidian. Nicaea is generally identified with the La Marana district further north, where the Romans later built a city, Mariana, on the Etang de Biguya, a better harbour. Diodorus says that the cities of Corsica were subject to the Phaeacians in that the latter took slaves, resin, wax and honey from them. Eulalia was then an emporium of the natives whom the Phaeacians subjugated. Diodorus says only that they were barbarians, whose language is very strange and difficult to be understood, and that they numbered more than 30,000. At home, Phaeacia was the first city of Ionia to come under siege by the army of Cyrus, who were Medes commanded by Harpagus. In 546 BC, requesting a ceasefire, the Phaeacians took to their ships, abandoning the city to Harpagus, who allowed them to escape. Refused permission to settle Nicaea in the territory of Chios, they resolved to reinforce Eulalia, but first made a surprise punitive raid on Phaeacia, executing the entire Persian garrison. At this success, half the Phaeacians re-inhabited Phaeacia, the other half settled in the vicinity of Eulalia. In Corsica they were so troublesome to the Etruscans and to the Carthaginians of Sardinia that the two powers sent a combined fleet of 120 ships to root them out. But this force was defeated by 60 Phaeacian ships at the Battle of Eulalia in the Sardinian Sea, which Herodotus describes as a Cadmean victory because the Greeks lost 40 ships sunk and the remaining 20 so damaged as not to be battle-worthy. Now unable to defend themselves, the Phaeacians took to their remaining ships and sailed off to Rhegium, abandoning Eulalia. As the Carthaginians were not then interested in Corsica, the Etruscans occupied Eulalia and took over dominion of the island, which they held until the Romans took it from them. The Etruscans and perhaps others in their turn occupied Eulalia. There is no evidence of any other impact of theirs on the island or the indigenous population. The east coast location was simply fortuitous for them. Across the waters, however, rose a power that eventually dominated the entire island and had a lasting impact, changing the language. Eulalia was occupied by the Romans during the First Punic War in 259 BC. Florus says that Lucius Cornelius Scipio destroyed it and cleared the region of Carthaginians, while Pliny adds that Sulla much later placed two colonies, Aléria and Mariana. Evidently the Corsican Etruscans had been still cooperating with the Carthaginians. Not including the island was divided into 32 states. The Etruscans continued to use the necropolis. Subsequently, the Etruscan population must have assimilated to a new Roman population in parallel with the assimilation of Etruscans on the mainland. The Etruscan language disappeared, and it must have been starting from that time that the island began to acquire its Latin language. Under the late Roman Republic, the Romans decided to build a major naval base on the shores of Etangdidian. Starting in 80 BC under Sulla as dictator, they rebuilt the city on the promontory at Aléria, naming it Aléria. The city rose to prominence under Augustus, becoming the provincial capital of Corsica. Major fleets were stationed on the Etang. Ptolemy mentions it but says little about it, only mentioning Aléria Colonia, the Rotanus River and Diana Harbour. He lists the native races inhabiting the island, but their geographical coordinates do not match those of Aléria. Perhaps the Roman town was not considered among them. In the later Roman Empire, the port and the city declined. It never recovered from a disastrous fire of 410 AD and in 465 was sacked by the Vandals. Subsequently it became a small village of no interest to any major power. These events must mark the end of its classical antiquity. It was buried bit by bit by the Tavignano and the Tagnona, which also created the deadly marshes. The region became subsumed under a Christian parish. Medieval and modern history. In the 13th century, Aléria became of interest to the Republic of Genoa. By that time the Latin language was gone, but it had developed into Corsu on Corsica, in parallel with the development of other Romance languages. The commune of Aléria was created in 1824, but it did not truly begin to revive until after 1945, after the Allies had undertaken to eradicate malaria. An organization, SOMIVAC, was created in 1957 to resurrect agriculturally the entire Eastern Plain under government sponsorship. It had great success in developing the region. A massive archaeological effort got underway in 1955. Population. As of 2008 update, Aléria has a population of 1,957. Ecclesiastical history. There is some evidence that Corsica was being converted to Christianity in the late 6th century. Pope Gregory the Great wrote in 597 to Bishop Peter of Aléria to recover lapsed converts and to convert more pagans from the worship of trees and stones. He sent him money for baptismal robes. In 601, however, Aléria was without a bishop. Aléria was a residential diocese, suffragan of the Metropolitan Archdiocese of Pisa, which became a dogal state in Italy. It counted among its bishops Saint Alexander Sorli. On 29 November 1801, in accordance with the Napoleonic Concordat of 1801, it was suppressed as the territory of the Diocese of Ajaccio was extended to the whole of Corsica. At the end of the ancient regime, the bishop no longer lived in Aléria, but in Cervena. Residential bishops of Aléria incomplete. Early centuries unavailable. Landulf, Hieronyma, Marco de Volateresse, Blaise, Flavius, Antoine, Clement, Nicholas, Lombardo Cuneo, Orlando Cortanque della Petrolarita, Landulf, Lombard, Nivoleo Fortigera, Bartolomeo de Benevento, Orlando Cortanque, Salvan, Guglielmo, Gerardo Orlandini, Calcagna Bocca di Bu, Guglielmo Arcimbaldi, Arnold, Dominican Order, previously Bishop of Segni, Raymond, Johannes, Blaise, Salvan, Bartolome, Otto Brino Lomolino, Eliacuto N. Ambrogio de Messa, Giovanni Andrea Bussa, Cardinal Ardicino della Porta, created cardinal priest of Esses. Giovanni e Paolo, also apostolic administrator of Olomouc. Girolamo Pallavicini, apostolic administrator Cardinal Innocenzo Cibo, while Cardinal Deacon of S. Maria and Dominica, also apostolic administrator of Marseille, also apostolic administrator of Ventimiglia, former Metropolitan Archbishop of St. Andrews and Bourges, more mandates later. Francesco Pallavicini, Pietro Francesco Pallavicini, Saint Bishop Alessandro Sorli, Barnabites, previously Superior General of Clerics Regular of St. Paul, later Bishop of Pavia, Ottavio Belmosto, later created Cardinal Priest of S. Carlo I Catanari, Domenico Rivarola, later Metropolitan Archbishop of Nazareth Cana Monteverdi and Barletta, created Cardinal Priest of S. Martino I Monti, Giovanni Scalo, Giova Francesco Morta, Desio Giustiniani, Agostino Donghi, Cardinal Ottaviano Raggi, already Cardinal Priest of S. Agostino, Giovanni Battista Imperiali, Mario Emanuele Durazzo, later Bishop of Mariana Reacci, Raffaele Raggi, Barnabites, Carlo Maria Giuseppe Forneri, Carlo Maria Giuseppe de Forneri, later Bishop of Albenga, emerited as titular Bishop of Italian Lydia, Agostino Saluzzo, Lazarists, later Bishop of Mariana Reacci, Camillo de Mari, Girolamo Curlo, Matthew de Angelis, Jean-Joseph Marie de Guernes, titular see today. Aléria, no longer a residential bishopric, is listed by the Catholic Church as a titular see, being nominally restored in April 2004. It has had only one incumbent yet, of the lowest rank, Guido Fiondino, Auxiliary Bishop of Torino. Archaeology. Hundreds of archaeological sites on Corsica offer a view of an island that has been occupied continuously since about 6500 BC and has never been isolated. It was common for populations on Corsica to maintain contacts with other communities on the Mediterranean. The indigenous people of Corsica, therefore, might have come from anywhere on the Mediterranean. The various archaeological museums on the island preserve ample remains from the Neolithic, Chalcolithic, Bronze Age and Iron Age, with some interpretive or circumstantial variation in the dates. Only in the Iron Age were there any historians to distinguish between the indigenes descending from previous populations and the more recent colonists. Although no settlements of urban density preceded the first Greek colony, Aléria is unlikely to have been altogether unpopulated. A chance find of an ancient rubbish disposal pit at a location called Serena, about 2 kilometers from the Etang de Dian, gives some information regarding pre-Roman habitation. The pit was excavated between 1975 and 1981 by G. Camps, who found 4 levels and named the site after the most important, Terina IV. Terina IV features a Middle Neolithic settlement in which the use of cattle and pigs were, in contrast to the rest of the island, which kept mainly goats and sheep and grew grain. The Chalcolithic, approximately 3500–3000 BC, arrived by easy transition. The population of the site manufactured arsenical copper and copper goods. The visible antique habitations at Aléria date to the Iron Age and are consistent with the common history. Although ruins on the promontory were noted by Prosper Mérimée in 1839, they were only excavated in 1955 by Jean Jahasser and Jean-Paul Boucher. By 1958 the excavators had uncovered the forum of the Roman city of Aléria, first occupied in the 1st century BC. A pre-Roman, Etruscan necropolis was then discovered 500 meters to the south, containing more than 200 tombs. It was excavated between 1960 to 1981. The necropolis had been in use mainly from the 6th to the 3rd centuries BC and was abandoned altogether with the construction of the Roman city, which had a cemetery to the north. No artifacts that were identifiably Etruscan have been found to have been from before the 6th century BC, that is, the Etruscans were most likely intrusive at that time. Systematic excavation since 1955 has revealed wide-ranging contacts in the 6th century BC, through pottery shards in test pits, with Ionian, Phaeacian, Rhodian and Attic black figureware. The excavated necropolis of Casabiander's rock-cut tombs have revealed treasures and goods, left or placed with the buried, that include fine works of art, jewels, weapons, metalware, bronze and ceramic plates and dishes, in particular, ritons, distinctive craters decorated by some of the first-rank Attic vase painters. Portable antiquities found in the Aléria commune are presented for public viewing in the Musée Jérôme Carcopino in Fort Matra in the village of Aléria. Economy. L'Etang de Dian occupies 600 hectares. In it, the Isle des Pecas features a large mound of oyster shells accumulated from Roman times. When removed from their shells, salted oysters were exported to Rome. A company has revived with success the production of mollusks in the Etang. In the commune, grapes and citrus fruits are commonly grown. Bibliography. Stilwell, ed. Richard. Alalia, later Aléria, Corsica, France. Princeton Encyclopedia of Classical Sites. Abram, David, Jeffrey Young, Theo Taylor, Nia Williams. The Rough Guide to Corsica. Rough Guides. pp. 300–304. ISBN 1-84353-047-3.